And good afternoon, everyone. And it looks like I'm still speaking to myself at this point in time, so I'll give it a second before everyone joins us. And Ramadan Kareem to everyone. I hope you have a wonderful and blessed month. And of course, first in through the gate, it is Dee and Joseph Adu. Great to see you again, as well as Itshari, Akir, Abdulaziz. Hello to you too, good sir. And Joseph, hello to you as well. Ramadan Kareem, everyone. And I hope you have a wonderful and blessed month. I hope you get to spend great quality time with your family and friends and a great opportunity for reflection. Sahel, thank you for joining us. Itshari, good afternoon to you as well. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Abdulaziz and Shireen, hello, hello, hello. Thank you guys for joining us today. Just waiting maybe a few more seconds before others join us. Eden, great to see you. I think you're a new name. Haven't seen you here before, and great to have you. And Tushar, welcome to the Sarwa Market Snack. Yazbek and Famish Aviator, hello to you too as well too. You can go in so many different ways. And Abdulaziz, can you share your HR email for Sarwa? I can do actually. We have our moderator who's actually on our Sarwa Market Snack today. So if you don't mind sending the message directly over, because my thumbs, if I start typing, it's not exactly a really great look. Amazing. What I want to talk to you guys about today, there's a lot to cover, okay? And, I'm going to kind of take you through the journey. There's 4 key things that I want to talk to you guys about today. Number 1 is overview of what happened in the markets last week. Secondly, talk about notable events in the news. There's been a lot of activity in the news last week, so I wanted to share that with you. Number 3, talk about our focus topic today, which is to kind of give you a hint, has something to do with money, more specifically as to how you can make more of it, and also how you can save as much of it as possible. And of course, end it off with how Sarwa can help you with your financial goals. So without further ado, for all of those who, just recently joined us right now, just want to say thank you for joining us. My name is Ayman Gebri, Head of Wealth Advisory at Sarwa, and Ramadan Kareem to everyone. And I look forward to spending the next 25 to 30 minutes with you. So number 1, let's talk about the markets last week. You'll find it's probably really relatively unchanged in comparison to how it was last week, because we had a little bit of a nice little growth and then things came back down and settled in. So by the end of the quarter, the numbers look quite similar than how they did a couple of weeks ago. But to give you an overview of what they were, the S&P 500 ended up at negative 5.23% year to date, which is I know where we saw that number. It's a very familiar number. Hello, I am Farhan. Always great to see you. Dow Jones Industrial Average is at negative 4.83%. And NASDAQ out of the correction territory now, which is really great to see. So things look like they're going in the right direction. You're looking at negative 9.92%. FTSE, nice little surprise, positive territory. So plus 0.44%. Nothing to shout to the hills about, but nonetheless something to celebrate either way. The Nikkei and the Hang Seng and the Shanghai Composite, unfortunately, are still down. You're looking at negative 5.58%, negative 5.31%, and negative 9.63% for the Shanghai Composite Index. So what was happening in the news last week? Well, let's talk about it. So the quarter ended. So January, February, March, the quarter is over. And how did the markets do overall? Again, not a surprise. They were negative. How about much better than their previous lows 3 weeks ago? NASDAQ, as I said, was in a correction territory. It no longer is. The S&P was down nearly 10%. Now we're looking at half of that. And interestingly enough, and I don't know if anybody noticed, but the US indices are now back to the level that they were right before the war between Ukraine and Russia. So it's interesting how things can change relatively quickly, and sometimes the drums of war are, cause a lot more panic and fear than the actual war itself. And I'm not saying that we're out of the woods as yet, but it's just interesting to note that we're back in the same territory that we were in right before the war started. The US released their employment figures, and they were a very healthy 3.6% unemployment rate. A total of 431,000 jobs were created last month. And it's interesting because it's not just about the jobs that were created, but it's also about the people who are actively looking for work. So there's been a little bit of a change in behavior and psychology in the US right now, where there's more people who are actually actively seeking work. Now, there's a few theories, kind of going around as to why that is. One of those things could be maybe due to the rise of cost of living, that people are looking for solutions to address, their day-to-day expenses that are increasing. So that could be one. The second one could be that the stimulus programs, which were very popular during the pandemic stage, are starting to basically wind down. And as a result, there isn't going to be any liquidity coming in from central bank or the Federal Reserve. And as a result, people are now forced to go back to work. So it's an interesting thing to kind of see. What we do know for a fact is that salaries did go up to the tune of 5.6%. So year over year, comparison March of 2022 to March 2021, wage growth was 5.6%. But let's not forget, we also had the numbers last month, and we're about to get the new ones very shortly, where inflation was at 7.9%. So still, there is a gap between wage growth and inflation, and as a result, is at about 2.3%, wage difference between the two. So costs are increasing higher than salaries altogether. Now, the war in Ukraine still continues. However, Russian military have retreated from parts of Ukraine, more specifically the city of Kiev and the surrounding areas, and they've regrouped and repositioned to the southern parts of Ukraine where they held some territories there. Now, there are ongoing peace talks, and that might be the reason why the markets have kind of reacted very favorably over the last few weeks. There are ongoing peace talks, but, there was some news that came out over last week about, some images and pictures of the devastation that was done to Kiev and all the civilians who were impacted as a result. And this is actually coming up with an international outcry. And, chances are, and it is a a lot of discussions happening at this point in time, but potentially more sanctions being applied to Russia in light of what they've seen in these images. Gas prices are, they're down, but they're still above the $100 barrel mark for Brent crude oil. And even to the point that President Biden has indicated that he's going to tap into the special reserves that the U.S. have just so they can address the nation's gas crunch and ease prices for Americans themselves. So you're looking at about $180 million worth of U.S. oil reserves that they're looking to tap into. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell reiterated his message that he said, look, this 25 basis points increase that we've done, this isn't the end of it. You should expect at least 6 more interest rate hikes by the end of this year. So don't go celebrating too quickly as yet. We're still kind of being very cautious and watching what's happening within the markets to be able to understand, what measures that we need to take. In other news, number one, America's second largest employer, and just think of that fact. It's America's second largest employer has union blues. Amazon workers at New York City warehouse have voted to unionize this last Friday, and it's establishing Amazon's first U.S. union. If you've been following the news on Amazon, there's been a lot of challenges and debates between unionization and not unionization, and it looks like it's established at this point in time. And interesting, it's a David and Goliath scenario, because the individual who was at the forefront of this unionization drive was an individual who was fired 2 years ago from Amazon, and this person basically took the helm and convinced a number of employees to on the merits of unionization. So it's really interesting how the David Goliath situation really equates in this conversation. Elon Musk was also in the conversation last week because Tesla delivered 310,000 vehicles last quarter. And it's a big jump from last year's Q1, when it only delivered 185,000 vehicles themselves. Now, why this is impressive is not just the fact that the number has gone up, but incumbents like Ford, General Motors, or Toyota actually struggled last quarter. They all had challenges when it comes to chip shortages. Their sales revenue was down about 20% for GM and 15% for Toyota, and it's hampering their production due to these chip shortages. But somehow Elon Musk and his company managed to make it through and grow their deliveries at that point in time, which is really exciting. And then he's not done yet. It seems like he's on a roll at this point in time. So if anybody who's been kind of, near their computer, or maybe were on their phone about an hour ago, Elon Musk, it's confirmed now, he's basically taken a 9.2% stake in Twitter, causing pre-market trading to jump by 26% on Twitter shares. So interesting times and how quickly things can develop. Now, on our focus topic today, and this is something where, I'm really passionate about this, and I've been in the region now for north of 11 years at this point in time, and I've seen, the different, I would say, the different, waves of, expenses increasing, expenses decreasing and whatnot. And we're in one of those situations right now. It is you're right. I am going to talk about gas prices and electric vehicles. You're absolutely right. But there's one thing we need to acknowledge, that the cost of living is rising in the UAE. Gas alone last week went up by 50 fils per liter, which is a huge and significant jump. What you used to pump your gas, what amount you used to pump your car with last year is very different than how much it is this year. Grocery, rent, entertainment, and if any of you who have children, you'll start receiving that invoice for the next school year, and you tell me if those prices go down or if they go up. High probability it's probably going to go up. So if U.S. inflation, as we know it last month, is 7.9%, we can reasonably assume that UAE is likely not that far behind. So what do you do, right? And that's a key question, right? So we know the cost of living is increasing. So what do you do? Inaction is not a viable option. At the end of the day, it's going to cost you one way or another, and there's no way you can avoid it. But doing nothing means that you're going to have less disposable income at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter, year, whatever it might be. So having less means that your personal financial goals can and potentially will be compromised. So if no action is taken, your commitment to yourself to put away a set amount every single month will get harder and harder to achieve. So if things like retirement, school fees, universities, they have expenses too. And unfortunately, they pass them right on to the students, which means if you're a parent, you're going to have to foot that bill yourself as well. Maybe it's your dream home. Interestingly, when inflation is up, property prices go up as well too, and rent prices go up. So all of those factors are impacting negatively. So again, what do we do? And here's what I wanted to talk to you guys about today, because I only really see two viable options here, right? And they're very simple, in the context itself, it's very simple, but maybe the execution might be a little bit of a challenge due to your own, personal capacities and availability and skill set. But it really comes down to two things: make more money or save more money. Make more money, save more money. Those are really down the path that you can really take in this scenario. And I wanted to kind of give you a few ideas. And let's start with making more money. A few ideas of how you could legally, within the UAE, and for those of you who are tuning in other jurisdictions around the region here, I hope this will, translate over for you guys as well, and that these opportunities are also available for you. But, if you work, right, you have a job, you can hope to receive a salary increase, right? But unfortunately, the reality is that the salary wage increases never, and I repeat, never keep up with the cost of living. I used to work in a market many, many years back where I used to get a cost of living allowance raise every single year, and I was roughly around 3%. I was too young to even notice the impact of this, but now being an older gentleman working in a region where that is not a common topic or common idea, I understand the importance of having a salary raise that at least keeps up with inflation. But we don't have that. It's not a commonality here in the region, which means that it's really up to us to find ways to counter the impact of inflation. So here's a few ideas, right? A few ideas I'm going to share with you. And I'm going to caveat this, guys, okay? Because I don't want any lawyers knocking on my door saying that's not legal or you're not allowed, or Baladia saying, what are you doing, sir, right? So, of course, explore the legality, any applicable licenses that you need, or if you need an NOC from your employer, just have those discussions. You don't know unless you ask, right? So here's a few ideas, to help you generate more revenue. It could be number one, maybe teach a skill, whether it be online or maybe if you're visiting others who may require your help with this skill. It could be as simple as music lessons. It could be dancing. I mean, if you know how to bust a move and you want to show a few other people how to do it as well too, I could assure you there are people who are willing to pay you to show them how to dance. You could be a yoga instructor. You'd be quite surprised that sometimes I go to my local community park here and I see maybe 20 people laid out on the park, and I see a yoga instructor who is teaching, and they're getting paid for this, right? So if you do have a skill, why not teach it to others who are willing to pay you for this? Okay. And again, if you have any ideas, guys, please pop them in. And also maybe let me know if any of you guys are already doing this all together, right? So teaching a skill, that's a really cool option that you have. Number 2, create an online course, right? Some of us are subject matter experts in what we do in the field of work that we're in. It could be maybe marketing, it could be finance, it could be accounting, it could be consulting, whatever it might be. Create an online course that maybe others may actually benefit from your learning, from your expertise. You'd be quite surprised. What if you're a fitness guru? Maybe you've got it really down pat. You've got the ideal, ratio of muscles to percentage of body fat, whatever it might be. You ever considered maybe being a fitness instructor in your extra spare time, right? That could be something to actually consider as well. What about freelancing, right? There are so many websites today. When I'm going to name a few like Fiverr, Guru, Upwork, there's so many websites in which you can actually do something very menial and actually get paid income for that. What if it's translating, right? It could be maybe, okay, I've got these documents, I have a really strong command of the Arabic language, I can read and write, and I need to translate these documents into English and I'll get paid for this. That could be something maybe you do in an afternoon if you have the spare time, right? It could be, and this is interesting, I met a gentleman the other day who's a YouTube content creator, right? Very lovely fellow, and he's really passionate about saving and exploring investment solutions that are available out there in the market, whether it be within the GCC or outside of the GCC. And this individual has a channel on YouTube that basically talks about how to become a better investor. And due to his subscribers that he has, he earns residual income. This is his hobby. This is what he loves. This is what he's passionate about, and he's just chosen to create a channel on YouTube to talk about his passion, and he's getting paid for it, right? There's a few other people within this region I know from my own personal circles, whether it be professional, personal, who actually really got into selling stuff online. We're talking about like Amazon, right? You can be, I forget the term itself, but basically you're a reseller, right? You take goods from other parts of the world, bring it over here to the UAE, and you basically resell it here, and there's a nice little markup, there's a little bit of an arbitrage there, and you can make yourself a decent amount of income. I know a gentleman today that he basically is able to generate equivalent level of income from his Amazon business to his salary itself. And this is just his little extra money that he's making on the side as a little nest egg. It could be something like as simple as Mom's World or InstaShop. You'd be surprised what people are looking for in this part of the world that may not necessarily be readily available. And if you're able to source it out and find it, why not, right? FBA, is that what it's called? Thank you so much. Fulfilled by Amazon. Thank you. It was slipping my mind. Thank you so much. Tourist guide. This is a really interesting one I came across the other day. Look, if anybody has spent time in the UAE, right, and you know every inch of it, like you know every part of it, and you know how to direct somebody to go here, take a right here, and you know all the tourist hotspots, you'd be surprised that you can actually register yourself as a licensed tourist guide and literally take small groups of people around to different places and show them a great time, and you can make money. This could be something that you could do maybe on the weekends if you have some downtime, or in the evenings. Dubai especially it has a lot more tourists coming in today than they did a year ago. So that's a really awesome opportunity that you have there, right? I met a gentleman the other day who's a very competitive gamer, right? I'm talking about like video games and whatnot, right? This gentleman, has his own Twitch channel that basically earns revenue, just from people watching him play. And I'm not a gamer, so I'm embarrassed to even talk about this. So if anybody's a true gamer on here, please don't laugh at me at my description. But I just know that this person who has turned their hobby into a revenue generating tool, just by simply having others, watch him play and him engaging the audience and whatnot, right? And there's a few viable options to help you make more money. And the whole summary as to why I'm sharing this with you, ladies and gentlemen, is that because, as I said, inaction is not a viable option if you're looking to achieve your financial goals. Inflation is a real thing. It's that silent pickpocket that is going to take money out of your wallet when you're not even noticing it. And you have to take a proactive approach to try to find ways to be able to generate more income in addition to your consistent income that you have. UAE, I find it to be a very inspirational place. I have known colleagues over the years who were employed just much like myself, who had an idea that they explored and they launched their own business. Now they have over 200 employees and counting, and all just started from an idea that they had on a napkin, and they basically explored it and they took a chance and took a risk. Maybe even consider doing that. If you have this particular skill, or if you see an opportunity within the market that you want to capitalize on, start your business. There's nothing venture, nothing gain, as they would say, right? The Henry family esports is the next big thing. Eamon, I need to catch up. I'll tell you that right now. I think the last thing I've ever owned was probably a Super Nintendo. And please, again, for anybody who knows that, you're probably as old as me. So that's on the front of making money, okay? That's making money. But, not all of us have the capacity, whether it be time, whether it be energy, or whether it be maybe even the skill sets, as far as that we have that are marketable, that we can that we can actually offer our services for revenue, right? Well, the alternative that you have is save, right? Save more money. And let's do real numbers here in this case, right? Let's say the UAE is actually experiencing the same level of inflation as the US, okay? And there was 7.9% last month. Let's just say it's the same for example purposes here, right? Now, let's just say you had a salary of 300,000 dirhams a year, okay? Or 25,000 dirhams per month. That's your salary, let's just say. Now, factor in a 7.9%, increase in cost of living. That 7.9% on 300,000 dirhams means that your purchasing power has diminished by 23,700 dirhams. Okay? 23,700 dirhams. That means you have potentially 23,700 dirhams less this year than you would last year. So what can you do to counteract this? Now, it's very easy for me to tell you, there's these amazing apps that you can use. 2 for 1. I'm thinking of entertainers, Zomato Gold, maybe going on to Bizzle, looking for pre-loved items instead of purchasing new items. No, that's not where I'm going to start here, okay? What I want to talk about is the importance of establishing a budget. You can't put one before the other. If you take the approach of using these apps to help you save money, the reality is the money that you've saved, you're likely to go spend it anyways. Right? So what you want to do is you want to be very diligent and understand where your money is going every single month. Pull out your PDF document of your bank statements or your credit card statements. What am I spending my money on? Is it on entertainment? Is it on housing? Is it insurance? Is it restaurants? Is it this? Whatever it might be, you need to actually take a step back and say, okay, you know what? If I don't really jump on this, things are going to get out of hand really quickly, and I'm going to find myself having a lot less and less every single month. So what you need to do is first create the budget and stick to it. That's the most important thing, because sticking to a budget will actually help you find ways to save money at the end of the day. That's when you start utilizing these apps or finding solutions or finding deals and searching versus just paying the price that you just see, the sticker price right off the bat. Has anybody ever heard of haggling or negotiating? I don't know. Does anybody do that anymore? Why not, right? Look, I know it's tough to put a budget in place, but it's a necessity. But I know what's also even tougher is having to say no sometimes, right? Especially when you get invites from friends, colleagues, it could be work, it could be family, whatever it might be, whether it's a lavish dinner, whether it's a brunch, whether it's an impromptu vacation. We've got World Cup, coming a few months ago. I can't tell you how many people are saying, hey, man, are we going to go? Are we going to go? And I'm like, do I really need to go? I mean, I really want to, but do I need to go? That's a big question mark, right? And it's completely understandable, right? It's human nature. We don't want to miss out on the experience. FOMO, really, at the end of the day. Number 2, we don't want to appear rude, and we don't want to disappoint the other person. And it's completely understandable as to how difficult it is to say no to all these invites. UAE, it's an amazing place where you have so many social circles, but the problem with having so many social circles is the fact that everybody's always going to be inviting you somewhere at some point in time, which means that you need to have an unlimited budget to be able to meet everyone and go to all these events. Sometimes we feel obligated to say yes, and we feel that some societal pressures or professional pressures if you don't say yes. Look, my advice in this case is, and look, you can format it in any different ways if you like, but when you're faced in a scenario where you have received an invite and you have not budgeted for that, it could be as simple as saying, thank you for the invite, but I haven't budgeted for that. Simple, clean, no explanation required. If they're your friends, they're your colleagues, they'll understand. In fact, that might actually get them to start thinking, what do they mean by budget? Budget. I really should have a budget. Oh, I know why. I should really start looking at my own finances as well too, because guess what? Everybody's feeling it. It's not just you. Sometimes people are just too shy to admit to it, right? At the end of the day, right? Be honest and be genuine. Saying no doesn't have to be an emotional, sterile exchange. Saying no as how you would want to hear it, with compassion and respect. Focus on the bottom line, your financial goals. You're going to retire at some point in time. You need financial independence. This is not negotiable. It doesn't go away. You're just kicking the bucket further down the road altogether, right? If you have children and you want to be able to subsidize their university needs, that's something that you're going to have to face at that point in time. When they're 18 years old and they're applying for school and they get accepted, but if you don't have the budget to be able to send them to their dream school, that's a tough conversation to have at that point in time. And I'm only here to help. At the end of the day is I want to be able to guide you to make the best decision, because I want you to be financially empowered and I want you to be successful and I want you to be able to have peace of mind at that latter stage in your life. So what's a practical budget to utilize? We like to use the 50-30-20 rule, okay? And it's a very simple one. Make a budget so that your fixed expenses do not exceed 50% of your gross monthly income. Your discretionary expenses, you do have to reward yourself. And I'm not saying eat tuna and ramen every single night. That is not what I'm saying at all. I want you to reward yourself, but make a budget for it. No greater than 30% of your gross monthly income. That 20%, that's your sweet spot. That's what's going to contribute towards your long-term goals. That's what's going to help you get that house that you want, that retirement lifestyle that you've been working so hard for all your life. That's what that's for. How can we help? Really, I'm sorry, I got a little bit passionate here because I'm a really big advocate of this. And if anybody who's been on these market snacks with me in the past, you'll know that I when I get to this section, when I talk about your financial independence, it's really important to me. It's something that I deploy in my own personal life and bug my friends about on a regular basis. But how can we help you here at Sarwa? Really, right? Look, we've got financial solutions here which are very cost effective, easy to understand, transparent. They are conducive for your success, right? And your success is our success at the end of the day. So we give you the opportunity to be able to save that 20%. Whether you want to invest it in a long-term diversified portfolio of ETFs that we will manage for you from end to end, we've got that for you. Whether you want to be behind the driver's seat and you want to be able to pick and choose your own investment solutions through Sarwa Trade, we have that as well too. You could even set up a reoccurring monthly contribution. You can do it as simply through your bank. Instead of making a periodic payment, why not just automate this? Take care of it through your bank, make it as a repeat contribution and let it just continue. You'll be so surprised that if you make it a habit that this is automated, you'll start living, within your means. You'll start not even noticing that you are living within that budget of the 80%. That's one of the things. It's bonus time right now. Maybe consider allocating a certain portion of that towards your investments, right? Of course, treat yourself. You worked really hard. You deserve it. If you received the bonus, might as well splurge on something for yourself, but maybe allocate a little bit of that deposit towards your long-term goals. Adjust your contributions as needed. This is not a contractual plan, and I give great credit to our co-founders on this about creating a platform that's human. And I really am not a big fan of these contractual plans that lock you in for 10, 15, 25 years. And if you deviate from your monthly contribution, you're penalized really heavily. And that's not what I want to happen for you. We are flexible. So if you need to stop for a month, several months, you are behind the driver's seat. You adjust it as you need to be, as to your capacity. And of course, if you need any guidance or advice, reach out to us. We don't bite. We've got a team of advisors that you can speak to that will be more than happy to help you out. And we also have a really great customer support team to be able to address your questions on the go. And on that note, let me take your questions. And I know I've kind of ran long on time here, so I'm just going to take a look at the questions here just to see what's outstanding. But, you let me know, guys. Do you guys have any ideas as to how you can generate more income or what your strategy is to help you save money here in the UAE? Thoughts on Elon Musk acquiring 9% of Twitter? Joe Morgan, this guy's on fire, let's be honest with you. And I don't know how much you guys know about Elon Musk's history, but he's had a history of successes. And I'm trying to remember if it was PayPal or I'm just trying to always believe it was PayPal. I think he was one of the co-founders of PayPal itself. And it's just that I find this individual to be quite dynamic. He's a leader and very, forward looking. And it's interesting. I don't know what the outcome of this and as to why he's decided to, have a stake in Twitter. Maybe it was just an opportunity that he couldn't pass on, or pass up. But, time will tell, but I do think it's really interesting. And I'm really excited to see what else, is in store for Elon Musk. I kind of equate him to our modern day Iron Man, if you're an Avengers fan altogether, because I think he's really awesome in that sense. Joseph said the lag, where am I going? So, Joseph said the lag between the macro indicators are starting to correct themselves. That could very well be, Joseph. I'm not an economist, I'm more or less tend to kind of focus more on the long term and really focus on just putting habits in place and disciplined approach in place towards investing and kind of just set it and forget it. But that very, very well may be at the end of the day, Joseph, right? Now, Joe said, what's the legality of multiple renters per property in the UAE? Now, a caveat, of course, I don't work for the Baladia, nor do I work for the tourism board or anything of that sort. But my understanding is that if you are going to be renting your property on a short-term basis, you are expected to acquire a license. I heard it's very easy to do this and very cost-effective to do it. Might be just a simple Google search saying, short-term letting. I know a number of individuals who are doing really well with short-term letting, whether it be an apartment or a hotel apartment that they have. A lot of these tend to be within the marina area or within the downtown area. But yes, you are able to do this. You just need to acquire the license, and a very simple approach. It's something that you do digitally online. There's a small tax that you have to pay for that, or a fee that you have to pay, but nonetheless, you can do it. Haifa asked, what's a rough percentage to spend per month based on your income? So I'll revert back, Haifa, to the 50-30-20 rule. I think 20% is an ideal amount to allocate towards your long-term goals, and try to keep your fixed expenses to be no greater than 50%, and your discretionary, which is entertainment, your wants really more at the end of the day, to be no greater than 30%. That's a really good structured way to approach it. And, if anybody's curious as to, well, what will that mean to me 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line? I encourage you to just, plot out on either on a calculator or go online, just, type in 20% of your gross monthly income and repeat this, multiply this equation by 20 years or 25 years. That's the amount of principal that you're actually able to put away. And this is just principal, but factor in the growth rates, right? On top of that, it's a very different picture altogether. What else here? Saad asked, what are your thoughts about someone with debt and investing? That's a very good question, Saad. So if we're talking about bad debt, and bad debt is defined as, for example, credit cards. Credit cards typically will have a interest rate of anywhere between 30 and 36% per annum within this region. If we're talking about overdraft protection, which could easily be in the double digits interest rates. If we're talking about non-salary transfer loans, and even in that case, salary transfer loans as well too, they're very different than when comparing them to good debt, such as mortgages, right? So if it's a case where you have bad debt at this point in time, I would recommend you prioritize this over investing at this point in time. And I'll tell you why. That level of debt, or that level of interest that you're incurring on your portfolio, is significantly higher and guaranteed, by the way, than what the potential growth rate is on a portfolio. To do a comparison, if you've got a balance of 100,000 dirhams outstanding on a loan and you're paying, let's just say 20% per annum, it's a non-salary transfer loan, let's just say you're paying 20% per annum, and you've taken this money out and you've invested it at the hope and potential of maybe generating 7 to 8% per annum, numbers are not in your favor in that case. And this debt is also accumulating compound interest as well too. So I would prioritize paying off the bad debt. If it's good debt, doesn't really concern us as much, because at the end of the day, there's an asset at the end of it, because a mortgage means you own a property and that asset has an opportunity to appreciate and grow. So number one, I would prioritize your debt. And number two, I would focus on building an emergency reserve. That's really key. when push comes to shove and you are in need of capital, you don't really want to depend and rely on your investments so that to plug any gaps that you may have in your day-to-day cash flow. So you want to utilize your emergency reserves for that point, not your investments. And once you have these two kind of under control, you have a budget that you're able to follow, then at that point I would probably consider investing side. Now we're over the 4:30 mark, so I'll take one more question at this point in time. Saad 86, if he has already invested, Saad, if he's already invested for something for the long term, should he liquidate or keep them? Now here's the thing. Now there is a lot more I do need to know about this gentleman's personal circumstances in order for me to give him good advice and catered advice and bespoke advice. At the end of the day, what I've just shared with you as far as making sure your debt is under control, making sure you have your emergency reserves and putting a budget in place, these are best practices that are applicable to everyone. These are the standard 101 of financial planning that is applicable to everyone. But in this case, I probably recommend have a conversation with us, book an appointment with one of our advisors. We can look at your assets, your liabilities, and kind of understand where are you, being, impacted the most, and what path that you should be taking at this point in time. On that point, again, thank you everyone for joining us today. It has been a pleasure. I hope you have a wonderful and holy month, and hopefully we'll catch you soon. We've got the 4 Rules of Investing webinar coming up this week, Wednesday. We also have our AMA by our CEO, Mr. Mark Shahuan, so please do join us, and a slew of other exciting webinars that are coming up shortly. Thank you, everyone, and sincere pleasure.